righty. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicki Baxley. I'm so excited to be here with you today. You can find me on social media at Nicki Hearts Cards, which is down below. And I am primarily a card maker, but organization is one of my loves. I love organizing. I love putting things in rainbow order. I just really like getting my supplies. I feel like I get more use out of everything if I go on and have it organized. So I've got a few things to show you today, but of course I would love to have questions. I wanted to tell you a little bit about my following me and also doing my freebie. I have a freebie on Catherine Pooler mini inks. So just make sure that you check that out. And then I also kind of go over that in my presentation today. All right, so Jennifer says, how do you store your blending brushes? Okay, so blending brushes, I have several different storage containers. I have one from a place, and I'm going to try to say this carefully. I know I've got a Southern accent, but it's called Make It by Marco. They do it like 3D printing, and they make these organizers, which I can't quite reach from where I am right now, but they hold those blending brushes really well. And I use the kind that have the bristles on the end. I'm looking to see if I've got one close. But they stand them up like this. So if you see my craft room tour, it's called a bathtub organizer by Make It by Marco. Really fun. I really like those. They really display your colors. You can find things. The other thing that I'll use at times is actually right here beside me. And I'm organizing other things in it. But there's several different companies that make this. So it's got silicone on the top and it's plastic on the bottom, and it has these holes that things stick into. So see, this is like my most used tools. And so I am using this one over here in a cart, which I was actually going to tell you about if anybody has used a cart. So I'm at a stand-up desk, and I have a roll-out cart that has my most used tools, because with a stand-up desk, because it's adjustable, you can't have a set of drawers under there unless it's all the way down and not tall enough. And for me being tall, I'm kind of a taller person. I like having this right here so that I can grab it and get those most used tools. I just feel like you get better use out of them. Okay, Donna. So where in Tennessee? Oh, is the company talking? Okay, this is what she's talking about. So in my presentation, which I just messed up my hair, sorry. In my presentation, and this is hard for me to tilt without dumping it out, but these are called Organize More. And Organize More is in Tennessee. I believe it is in Mount Juliet, which is right close to Nashville. I'm originally from Nashville, and I know they're over close to where I was. I'm pretty sure it's Mount Juliet. It could be White House. But they make these, and these are, and I think they make them all by hand. They're wooden. I'm not sure, but it's a really nice thing, and that's what I've been using to store all of my mini inks. So highly recommend. They are a small company, so if you order from them, you do need to know that it may take a while. They make these in batches, and so sometimes you're having to wait a few weeks before you get them. So I hope they know this presentation is coming, and I think they're stocked up and ready. But just in case it goes crazy, I want you to know that it is not abnormal to have to wait a few weeks, because they are making all of these things. So with that, okay, so Jennifer, do you keep your favorite ink pads near your work desk, or do you have to get up to go to your shelves? So behind me, let me see if you can see those drawers back there. So I've got all of my mini ink pads. So these trays with mini ink pads, I have Alt New, I have Catherine Pooler, I have some Distress inks. All of that is right behind me, and that is about a little bit more than an arm's length distance. Then over to the side, which you would see on my craft room tour, over to the side, I have a stamp pad carousel with Distress oxides, and I have my larger ink pads over there. Those are, I do need to walk to get them, but generally when I'm going to be using ink pads, most of the time I have a plan. So I've got a color wheel, I'm picking those colors out and bringing them to my desk, which kind of brings me to the other way that I organize a project, which I brought out here for you. Feel free to pop up other questions if you've got them. Okay, so this is, let's see if you can see it. This is a tray, and this tray fits in my rolling cart down here. So say I've got a project and I know what I want to use. I'm trying to get this in the middle. And I'm going to try not to dump it out. That would be pretty funny. Okay, so I put all the ink colors I think I'm going to use. I put papers. I grab dyes for sentiments. I can't really show you on this because some of the things that I used on this specific project haven't come out yet. So I had to take those off the trays. I put my ink pads on here. I put my stamps, my dies, everything on a tray that can sit to the side of my desk, and I can keep it. So the reason that I use trays is because, one, they fit in these wonderful rolling things that I have here. Two, I need to take all of that stuff. If you're starting YouTube and doing cards or anything like that, you need to take all that stuff to where you're taking photos. And I take photos in my next room, which has my dining table and that kind of stuff. It has a lot of better light. And so I can just grab this whole tray, take it to the photo area, use the ink pads in the photo, use all that stuff there, and it really helps me. And this is from a cart from We Are Memory Makers. So it's a cart that rolls and pulls out from underneath my desk. I actually have one that I keep in my photo room and one I keep in here so that when I'm done taking the photo, if I'm not ready to put up all this yet, I need to still make a supply list or whatever, I can put it in that tray holder in the other room, and I kind of just swap out trays. So that's just one of those fun things that I do. Do we have other questions? Okay, do you use one ink blending brush per color family? Yes, I do. And I mean, really, I probably got more ink blending brushes than I need. But for the most part, I do every color family and I do types of ink. So I've got specific brushes that are for my oxides. I've got some specific brushes for Catherine Pooler inks. And then everything else usually falls into can all be used together. And so I tend to keep them in color families, but I usually do clean my brushes. I know some people don't. I tend to clean them just because I'm using a variety of inks with, say I've got a red brush, I'm using Altenew red. I'm using some of the Lawn Fawn. I mean, I've just got lots of different inks and I don't want to mix those different properties of inks together to make a mess on my project. Best way to label ink refills? That's a great question, Ruth, because here's what I got. I brought this over to my desk, so perfect. Okay, here is how I do refills, and I'll show you how I label them, okay? So this is a tray, as you can see, of and it's called a grid caddy. So this is a grid caddy. It's from Stamp and Storage, and it holds ink refills perfectly. Now, I also have a way to store ink refills up here in these are like nail polish trays. It's a 7-tiered thing on Amazon. You can find that on my Amazon store. So I have an Amazon store under Nicki Hearts Cards. So you can find that there. These would be, I believe, in my supply list for my presentation because I briefly show these, and they're called the Grid Caddy. So how I label them, let's see if I did it at the end. I label the ends of this because I can see this end in my calyx unit. And so I label the brand that I'm using and the sides of this too. So I've got spa colors over here and then party colors on the other side. Okay. And then I take, so let's see if you can see that. I take a little hole puncher and I put the ink color on a piece of paper and I punch out the hole, and then I use a glue dot to stick it on the top. And that gives you this one, it gives you a rainbow effect, which I love. But that way you can see what your colors are going to be like before you grab them. It also helps with ink refills. I've got so many greens. Sometimes it'll help catch me and be like, oh, wait, that's the wrong ink refill color. So you always have to make sure. I mean, they're labeled on their bottles once you pull them out. But if you're looking for a specific pink, you know, I've got it on the top, or you could just pull it out and it's on there. You don't have any other questions about that? Okay, when creating, do you ever mix brands of ink? I probably do, in that I'll use some brand of ink plus my VersaFine. This is my Nocturne. This is like the black ink that I use most. But as far as other inks, since my job is creating for companies, a lot of times I'm using the ink that is from that company and demonstrating it. So I tend to keep them together. When I'm using Catherine Pooler inks, she has I have a whole set of Catherine Pooler inks. So I tend to use only Catherine Pooler because I don't really feel like I need anything else. If I was more mixed media or something else, maybe I would use some different options. Occasionally I'll do an oxide and an ink on the same project from the Tim Holtz collection, but most of the time I stick with one per project. Hi, Susan. Good morning. What is your least favorite thing to organize? And what is the organization method you would not use again? Or product that you would not like to use again? Least favorite thing to organize. I would say my least favorite thing to organize is embossing powder. And that's because it requires a lot of like swatching. And I've been working on a way to do it in my craft room, but it's just, there's not anything real specific that holds it well. And it takes up a lot of space because I have a lot of embossing powders. So that one I've been kind of struggling with getting it done, and I've been working on that in my drawers. I am using that same ink pad tray. This is working pretty well for doing my embossing powders also. And I know I don't have embossing powders in here, but this tray has been working really well. So I like that I've found something new that should work. I'm just in the process of doing it. Any products that I wouldn't use again, like as far as organizing goes? I would say invest. If you have a craft room or you have a craft space, I would try to invest in sturdy ink pad holders, in sturdy drawers. You can find a lot of things that look good, but they don't hold up very well. And I feel like the Stamp and Storage and Organize More, those two companies, things that I've had from them, I have never had to replace. I've never had a problem with them. And so I really tend to gravitate towards their company versus just grabbing something off the internet that looks like the dimensions will fit. Okay, you organized your CP Mini inks by party and spot. What did you do with the extra colors that did not fall into those categories? Good question. I made an entire row that is so first of all, let's start with this. The ones that aren't in those categories, I don't have the minis yet. I have the full size pad. So in a little way, I'm kind of cheating with the full size pad because I have an entire row in one of my Stamp and Storage things that is just those neutrals, like the browns and the grays and the metallics. But the goal is to create in one of my drawers a couple of rows that are just neutrals. So I just don't have any minis that are neutral at this point. Do you store your alcohol markers horizontally or vertically? Horizontally. Sorry, have to think about those terms right there when you're on live. So flat like this. I think that there are certain companies you can store them other ways, but I have Copic markers and it's always been recommended to store them that way. And I found if I ever accidentally store it the wrong way, that I've had more problems with the tips drying out. So I tend to do them horizontally. I have a new organizing thing that I got from Amazon that I've actually been pretty impressed. It's made out of foam board, but it's really nice because it has an individual slot for each of those markers, and it's held up pretty good. It fits really well in my Calyx unit from IKEA, and I've had it probably 6 months. That's on my Amazon store if you want to see, but for the price, it really has been nice. Okay, Michelle, you organized your CP. Oh, wait, I think we got that one already. Okay, how do you clean your brushes? So I tend to just clean my brushes with water. I usually clean them right after I've used them. And so I take them, rinse them off. It's going to leave some staining on there, but that's okay with me. That helps me identify what color family that brush is. I haven't gotten mine labeled at this point yet. And so a lot of times I just go rinse them off in water. Do you prefer the ink pad holder that spins or the larger one on top? Okay, so I prefer the spinning for saving the most space. Okay, so the spinning one is amazing because it holds so much in so little space. So I would love to have more of those. They're just, they're an investment. And so I haven't done that yet. But the one on top to me is more because I like looking at the colors. So I love that, it's got my bigger ink pads, and they're all labeled with colors on the side. And I just am inspired by seeing rainbow colors in my craft room. My craft room is kind of, like off-white, and it's got some white furniture. So I like to do those pops of color when I can. All right, Susan, do those wood organizers for the inks tend to give splinters? I've hesitated to get organizers like that. So no, I have never gotten a splinter. Are you talking about these? Or are you talking about the ones that hold the ink pads, I wonder? So they're both made by the same one. This one is slightly rougher than my ink pad ones. The ink pad ones, the outside edges are very sanded wood. The slots are like a really dense particle board, which doesn't give splinters. So I've never had any problem getting splinters from them. You could always get their painted ones if that makes it feel better. They're making most everything in white, and that might help. But I mean, if you can see, like even the edges of this Organize More one, it's wood, but it is painted. I mean, it's smooth as it can be. Okay, Kim, what are the shelves you have behind you? I knew somebody was going to ask that. Okay. That question happens every time we have an organization thing because it is a little different. And this is something that I kind of like did a hack on. Okay. So these back here, and she's talking about these shelves right here, which forgive my pointing because it's always backwards on camera. Those are actually computer risers. You can also use shoe shelves, and they are not attached to my Alex drawers. So I can move them. They can move. So they're just, they were the perfect size to fit things like paper cutters. And this is a Mink machine. And I'll go back here too. See there, a big paper cutter. It's just a place so that I can use that vertical space. And sometimes I even question thinking about trying to attach them together to add even more vertical space, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. I may end up putting some bookshelves behind me at some point. Okay, I have a lot of punches. Any suggestions on how to sort? Oh, those punches take up a lot of room. The way that I have gotten rid of most of my punches because I tend to be a die cutter more now, but I did fill up an entire drawer of these Alex drawers. They're skinny drawers and they're from IKEA, and they've got a lot of real estate in a small drawer like this. So I tend to just layer them in there, but I am definitely not the expert on punches. Andrea, what is the advantage of having both the big pads and the minis? I just have one or the other, and I find it's hard because they are stored in different places. Okay, so here's the advantage. I love those large pads. So I'm going to talk about it mainly in Catherine Pooler terms, okay? Because Catherine Pooler is one of the few that I have minis and the big ones, okay? The big ones are so juicy. They've got a lot of ink, and with Catherine Pooler inks, you can make your own cardstock. So I love to take a big ink pad and go along and make cardstock, whereas the small ones and the big ones are oval shaped, okay? These have corners, okay? So it's got a sharp corner to it. I use this on the edges of die cuts if I don't want the white edge, and that corner helps me get into little places that are not easy to reach with the other one without getting the ink on the top of the paper. So to me, if I were picking one of the Catherine Pooler, I would probably pick the minis plus the refills for the advantages. But I also like I said, I'm kind of obsessed with Catherine Pooler, and I've gotten different sets before they came out with minis of all of them that I have, and I'm not going to replace those. I'm just going to use those as my cardstock making, or if I've got a big stamp, if you've got a big stamp and you're trying to cover an area, this may not be the easiest, but I do a lot of ink blending on her stamps. So, okay, do you keep track of your stamps, dies, stencils in a digital format? No, I do not. So I try to keep my craft room to where it is pretty, I guess, purged, I guess you could say. I do a lot of giveaways on my email that are de-stash boxes because I'm getting in product because I'm demonstrating card making on YouTube. So I'm getting in a lot of product and I need to have a place to put that away, and I need to keep newer items for the most part. So I tend to do a lot of de-stashing. And so I have not gotten into digital yet because I feel like right now, all that I can handle is what comes in and what I clean out just to keep things rolling. One of these days, I've had Jill Lipscomb has taken me through some of the different ways to do digital, and I will probably do that at some point. But a lot of times my things aren't repeat buying because I'm getting new things from companies that I'm working with. Okay. How do you store bling like gems, jewels, and enamel dots? Oh, I got lots of fun things on that too. So I have let me look in this thing, two ways that I do that. The main one is in the Elizabeth Ward bead storage. I'm going to grab it because I can grab it out of this drawer. Okay, I'm going to try not to dump it out, but here it is. So this is a tray that holds, sorry, making lots of noise, I'm sure, these little containers. And then I have them labeled so that I can see them. I also have some that are still in their original packets that I keep in like some refrigerator bins. I was on Cat Scrappiness's design team, and she does a lot of like shaker cards. And so I have several little small refrigerator bins that I line them up in so that I can see the name, and that same kind of thing as you're taking in products and you need a way to easily put it away so that you actually use it. So I've got those in refrigerator bins. Okay, we have another question. Do you like the Pouncers for applying ink to cardstock? Yeah, you can see that I have those back there. I am new to the Pouncers. I did a little project for Picket Fence, and so I like them for applying a lot of ink. So, or the little bitty ones for applying in a small area of a stencil. They're nice in that especially if you've got like wrist issues and you don't want to be doing this to ink blend, that you can just apply a decent amount of ink just by light pressure, basically. So it just depends on preference. How do I store my stencils? So I store everything by company, and I store my stencils in bins, which I'm looking to see if there's any in the background. Yes, there is. Hang on. These are the bins. I know this one's empty, but this is because it's an extra. This is the bin that fits perfectly in my calyx unit. It's called, starts with a V. I cannot remember what it is, but it's from IKEA, and you can get them in a lot of places. It's got this lower ledge here, and then I tend to store stencils in their original packaging along the side with the name on top. And I tend to do my stencils and my embossing folders from one company in the same thing because they're kind of similar size. Okay. Where did you buy your carousel? My carousel is from Stamp and Storage. So it's spelled Stamp, and then there's a dash, in dash storage. I believe that they may even have the trademark on that. I doubt you can get it anywhere else. So they are a US owned company. I believe they're in Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken. But great family owned company here in the US that does also build all of their stuff. So I'm kind of showing two of my favorites, both of which are made in the US and made pretty much by hand. So that answers that. All right, so it looks like we're getting close to our time to wrap up. So before we go, just remember to make sure you follow me on social media. If you're going shopping, please use my links, and don't forget to enter my giveaway. It's for $100 from Stamp and Storage, which is where that carousel goes. If you win that, you can pretty much buy a carousel. Okay. So it was so great to see all of you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.